Now, on the face of it, this is not a great day for New York City. Eric Adams has become the first sitting mayor of the city to be criminally indicted, which is pretty remarkable when you think about how long the city's been around. The charges are also, though, I find in a strange way, reassuring. I mean, they show we have a functioning federal government that still holds the rule of law to be a bedrock, sacrosanct thing, particularly in the Department of Justice. I mean, take a step back and look at the DOJ that Joe Biden inherited from his predecessor, Donald Trump. After Trump's endless, constant attempts to subvert federal law enforcement and convert it into a political tool of the president. Particularly when you look at the Southern District of New York, arguably the most influential federal prosecutor's office in the country, the one that just indicted Eric Adams. When Trump became the president, the Southern District was run by Preet Bharara. Remember that? He was the Southern District U.S. Attorney under Barack Obama. Now, we'd later learned that Trump was regularly calling Bharara, trying to cultivate a personal relationship that made Bharara so uncomfortable, he reported the context to his bosses at the DOJ and eventually refused a call from the president. Less than a day later, Bharara was fired. Trump's personal lawyer, Mark Kasowitz, would later brag that he convinced Trump to fire Bharara, telling the president, "This guy is going to get you." It was a pattern Trump would repeat over and over and over again as president, whether it was firing FBI Director James Comey after Trump asked Comey to drop the criminal investigation into then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, or having his Attorney General Bill Barr fire yet another U.S. attorney for the Southern District, Geoffrey Berman, the man that he had appointed in 2020, after Berman had prosecuted Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen and opened several other investigations of people and banks in Trump's orbit.
The cardinal rule is that partisan political concerns are not supposed to enter into any decision-making, and that rule was repeatedly violated. Now, we managed to push back every attempt to interfere in our cases, and we were successful every time, but it was difficult. It was 2.5 years of kind of unrelenting pushback.
Unrelenting pressure, 2.5 years. Trump was constantly pushing for prosecutions of his perceived enemies, including Hillary Clinton and John Kerry. He said this publicly. This is not some scoop here. His Attorney General, Bill Barr, also distorted and mischaracterized the Mueller report on the Trump campaign's Russia contacts. And he appointed a special counsel, John Durham, to investigate those FBI investigators who had looked into Trump and Russia, an investigation which yielded 2 embarrassing acquittals for Durham. We've blocked so much of this out, but Trump was constantly spending his time as president trying to manipulate the DOJ to do his bidding, to destroy any independence, right? And of course, that pressure culminated in his attempted coup after the 2020 election, when Trump was trying to name Jeffrey Clark, a mid-level DOJ lawyer, as a temporary attorney general so that Clark could then use the department's good name and its stationery to send out a letter saying the election was rigged and get state legislators to just overturn the election. Now, compare that to the Biden DOJ under Attorney General Merrick Garland, a Department of Justice that has bent over backwards to be independent of the White House and partisan political concerns. They appointed a special counsel, a Republican and Trump appointee, to investigate the sitting President Biden's own handling of classified documents. They prosecuted a string of high-profile Democratic officials and family members on a variety of charges.
Today, I'm announcing that my office has obtained a 3-count indictment charging Senator Robert Menendez.
Breaking news, NBC has learned that the Department of Justice is expected to announce an indictment against long-term Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas.
Today, we are announcing campaign finance, bribery, and conspiracy charges against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City.
An extraordinary step by the Justice Department earlier today. Federal prosecutors have indicted President Joe Biden's sole surviving son, Hunter Biden, on 3 criminal counts.
So the Biden DOJ has prosecuted a sitting Democratic senator, a sitting Democratic congressman in the Rio Grande Valley from a swing district that possibly only he could win as a Democrat, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, 40 days out from an election in which there's a whole bunch of swing districts around New York City Democrats are trying to win, and Joe Biden's last surviving son, who is awaiting sentencing on charges that even Trey Gowdy, the far-right former congressman and prosecutor, thinks are pretty ludicrous.
gun prosecutions for 6 years. But I'll bet you there weren't 10 cases prosecuted nationwide of addicts or unlawful drug users who possess firearms or lied on applications. I bet there weren't a dozen, which makes you wonder, of all the cases you could be pursuing in Delaware, why are you pursuing this one?
It is entirely possible that Joe Biden will leave the presidency and never see his son outside of a prison again. This is the administration the Republicans have politically weaponized the Department of Justice when the opposite is actually true. It's a point that the current U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, made today when he announced the Adams indictment.
The Southern District of New York remains committed to rooting out corruption without fear or favor and without regard to partisan politics. We are not focused on the right or the left. We are focused only on right and wrong.
Now, I want to be clear here. This doesn't mean the Department of Justice always gets it right, the prosecutors always get it right, that the people being prosecuted are guilty, right? They might not be. We're going to see in trials. But at the level of the institutional functioning of the Department of Justice, this is how the DOJ is supposed to work. Even though there is essentially zero political benefit in it for Democrats. And here's the thing. If Donald Trump wins, I think this is all going to change. These institutions could be put in the hands of Trump's creepiest authoritarian sycophants, like this Republican lawyer who's rumored to be in the running for a top DOJ post and who said this last year.
I will rain hell on Washington, D.C. We're going to fire a lot of people in the executive branch and the deep state. Number two, we're going to indict. We're going to indict Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and James Biden and every other scumball, sleazeball Biden. We're going to deport a lot of people, 10 million people and growing, anchor babies, their parents, their grandparents. We're going to put kids in cages. It's going to be glorious. We're going to detain a lot of people in the D.C. Gulag and Gitmo.
Okay, so Davis now says he's just trolling the libs, right? It's shtick. But again, there's no shtick here. Trump wants it to be policy, very clearly. He said it all throughout his presidency. He said it afterwards, and he said as much on the campaign trail this month.
We will completely overhaul Kamala's corrupt Department of Injustice and turn the Injustice Department back into the best law enforcement agency on the planet.
Guess who reposted that clip of Trump on social media? Mike Davis did, with a single word of comment, amen. Donald Trump is promising to destroy the federal justice system and the Justice Department so that he could wield it like a weapon to fit his political needs. And he's got help thanks to the John Roberts authored Supreme Court immunity decision, which goes out of his way to basically tell Trump, yeah, have at it. He would have carte blanche to do it as part of his official duties. Call the Justice Department and say, no, don't indict that guy, indict that guy. Think Joe Biden's doing that? So I, for one, am grateful, weird as it is, for today's indictment and the signal that it sends. The rule of law still holds up for now.